G'day, ZiggyD here. So Path of Exile's patch 0.10.4 has been out for almost a day now, and I just wanted to give you guys a quick rundown of some of the major new features in this patch, because I've been pretty surprised, but these weekly patches have all been pretty substantial, not just in the new skill that they've included, but also like new uniques, and often a lot of balance changes that are pretty interesting as well. So obviously the headlining new feature for 0.10.4 is the new skill Arctic Armor. Now if you want to see a full video guide to that I did, like a first impressions guide, I'll link to that in an annotation in the description below, and you can check that out if you're more interested in that skill. In the background footage I'm actually leveling up a shadow that might potentially be able to use that, so I'm sort of looking forward to testing around with it a bit more. It's an interesting skill but pretty niche overall. In terms of other features, we also have 4 new unique items, which I'll be putting up on screen for you guys this time around. I thought maybe you guys would enjoy seeing the new uniques once they're found, because it takes a little while for people to find them, but they're usually found within 24 hours. So I thought I might give you guys a bit of an overview of the new uniques, and overall I think it's pretty exciting and interesting to see these new uniques when they're added into the game, and this little item hunt that happens whenever the new patches come out. So the first one is an item level 64 evasion helmet with the cannot be frozen stat, reduced mana reserve, and +2 to aura gem levels. Now this is an extremely good helmet. It's a very high item level, but it is of an item level that can be found in docks. So that means that you don't have to farm maps to be able to find it. So I think eventually it will be fairly cheap, since you don't have to be in maps to be able to get it. The big thing about this, besides cannot be frozen, which is always a fantastic stat, is it has very high evasion, but it's also it's very popular to run auras in your helmet or in a 4-link slot like that, and having +2 to aura gem levels is very powerful, and that's not a stat that currently exists in the game. So it is a fairly unique helmet, for a unique, and is very strong all round. So I think it'll be fairly popular as well, and it's cool to have a new high level evasion helmet like that. The next one is a level 40 Great Mallet with +1 to melee and +1 to minion gen levels, as well as some other nice melee summoner stats. This should be a pretty good weapon for people wanting to use dominating blows. So melee summoner is, there's skills in the game that supplement that idea of having a melee summoner, but hasn't really been that many good items. So although this is only a level 40 item, it can potentially go pretty well for that sort of build. So if you're interested in making like a dominating blow Templar or a conversion trap plus dominating blow sort of build, then this could be a nice unique weapon for you to look into. The next one is a level 62 Hellion Paw Claw that has insane life leech and an instant life leech mod. Put simply, it is probably the best physical leech for physical leech claw builds weapon that's in the game at the moment. So basically, I was thinking when I was making my Cyclone build, I was sort of playing around with claws and things like that. I couldn't really get it to work very well. I had plenty of leech, but the problem often is that life leech is an over time sort of thing. It's not instantaneous life gain on hit. This claw pretty much solves that, and since you can dual wield uniques in this game, if you can get 2 of these Hellion Paws, then with their instant life leech and their absurdly high life leech mods, then you could have like a dual strike or a cyclone or some sort of claw build like that with insane life leeching potential. High HP, high life leech, instant life leech, pretty cool stuff. I'm pretty excited about that weapon myself, and maybe if you guys have been looking into making a claw build, an actual attacking claw build, then that might be a good one for you to look at. And then the final one is a level 1 simple road with all of the mods. Seriously, this thing has 12 mods. It's going to make for a GG leveling chest piece, especially if you find it in a race. I think you'd be pretty set. As you can just see, it's just got a huge amount of mods. I guess the trade-off with this, that diamond, I'm pretty sure this was one of the diamond created ones, and the person said, I want to make an item that has just a ton of mods on it. So obviously the trade-off was that they had to make a very low-level chest piece, or a very low-level item that didn't have very high mods. So they're pretty low, but for a level 1 chest piece, this is like an insane sort of thing. It's got like tons of resist, tons of damage mods as well on the chest, which is pretty powerful. And yeah, it's just a great leveling chest. So I think it's one that you could easily wear for 20 levels or so like that and have it be very strong. So that's a pretty cool addition to the game. I'm pretty excited to see them play around with that, make our items a bit more flexible in the mods they can roll and things like that. So the next feature change isn't really major, but it's something that you will encounter, and it might confuse you the first time you see it, is it's these new quest reward books. So whenever you get a quest reward that gives you a passive skill point or a passive refund skill point, you'll get this book now instead. So you have to take that into your inventory and then right click it to activate it. It's just sort of, I had some people asking, what's the point of this? Like, it just takes up extra inventory space and things like that. Well, you have to have that space there, but you can use it straight away and it gives you those points. It's not tradable, you can't stash it, you can't drop it, you can't give it to anyone else. It's simply about having this like connection between the player and the game that feels like you're actually getting a physical reward when the quest happens. It's sort of like a player engagement thing. There's a lot of psychology behind it, and I think it's a good, it's a good idea overall. It kind of takes people back to Diablo 2 when you would get that, you'd get that skill book that you would have to use and things like that, and people sort of enjoy that, aspect of the game. So not a major change, but an interesting and probably a pretty good one. Next up, we have huge item find changes. So in terms of increased item quantity in parties, this is pretty much GG multi-boxes, this one, because item drops from monsters are now calculated based on the number of players nearby, so within 13 meters or 6 tiles, which is about 1 screen in game, rather than the number of players in the instance. So that means people have to be all really close together when farming to be able to get increased quantity off the mobs and chests they open. So firstly, in a normal party setup, that means people need to stick together and work together more, which is probably a good thing, and it also means that people who run off and get chests now have really no reason to do that because they're not getting the increased quantity. So hopefully no more chest bandits either. The other thing that goes with this is that the quantity is based off the number of players within this range, both at the start and end of the fight. So for boss fights, which is what these multi-boxes have been doing, where they teleport a bunch of ults, like low-level ults, into the instance, kill the boss. If the ults die or whatever, it doesn't really matter. They kill the boss and then they get the loot for it. Now those players have to be within that range and at the fight for the start of the boss fight and the end of the fight for them to get the increased quantity. So that means you can't start and almost kill a boss, then teleport a bunch of people in and get the increased quantity, and it means you can't just teleport people in, then teleport them out, then kill the boss. So they need to be there the whole time. Still possible for people to multi-box, but very hard because they now need to teleport them in, maybe teleport them out, almost kill the boss, teleport them all back in, then kill the boss, and then teleport them back out. So it makes it much more difficult. And in terms of the way that it will affect party play, I think it's probably a good thing. There's been some other changes as well, which I haven't actually covered, but they're to do with the way that item labels and things like that are displayed now. So there's now no longer any names and items that drop for other players. They're just simply grayed out, and the timers have been increased. There's a fair bit of discussion about this, about whether it's good. Some people really love it, some people really hate it. I'll kind of leave that one up to you guys to decide. I don't play too much party play. I personally think it might be a step in the right direction, but I haven't really tested it enough to make a firm assessment of that. I can't really give my opinion on that in a very firm way. So if you guys have any opinions on that, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and maybe you'll be able to persuade me even. So next up, we have some balance changes. Firstly, Cyclone has been buffed by 5%, so instead of 35% damage reduction, it now has 40% damage reduction. They've also reduced the minimum distance that it travels when you activate it. So this gives you a little bit more control. It makes it a little bit more mana hungry if you're casting at minimum distance, but it also means you can cast over the top of one mob, like a rare or something, much more easily. So I think that's a really good change. The damage increase is minor, but it's still nice. But the extra control, the minimum distance reduction, I think is a really good change. So we're sort of seeing a bit of a theme here. A week after Incinerate was put in the game, it was buffed. And a week after Cyclone was put in the game, it was buffed. So maybe Arctic Armor, in a week will be buffed as well. I think maybe they're putting skills into the game a little bit, possibly on the underpowered side, so that then they can tone it up if they feel like it's not powerful enough after player feedback comes in. Or maybe it's just a coincidence and both were just buffed because, they needed to be. But, we can keep an eye on that, and I'm going to be playing around with Arctic Armor, and if it gets buffed in some way, then that could be pretty interesting. So the other balance changes were that Shockwave Totem now casts Shockwaves faster. Shockwave Totems are not very popular, but there was some niche builds that had some potential with them, with chaos damage and things like that. And obviously that's a little buff, so if you were trying to make some sort of Shockwave Totem build like that, that should be a nice change for you. The next one is that the 5% maximum resistances that was available at level 22 of Purity Aura is now is now available at level 23 instead. Now the reason for this is it's kind of, you know, like what does this matter? Is because of that new unique hood that adds 2 levels to aura gems. So basically they want that 5% increase to the resistance cap to be unobtainable for now. So the max you can get is the 4% increased max resistances. Very minor change, but you know, just something to be aware of. You can't, now that hood's in the game, purity hasn't suddenly become a lot stronger. It's still a little bit better, but you know, it doesn't have that cap increase as well. So anyway, hopefully you guys have found this interesting. As I said, there's a few pretty cool changes in this, and a few pretty major ones, especially those item quantity party play sort of changes. Party play is being shaken up a fair bit at the moment in Path of Exile, and I kind of like, you know, I like that they're, you know, playing around with that and trying to improve it. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.